The House will come to order. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Representative Goldstein.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Please join me in the pledge.
Mr. Shebel, please call the roll.
Representatives Bacon, Barone, Basenecker, Bottoms, Bradfield, Bradley, Brooks, Brown, Representative Brown is excused. Caldwell, Camacho, Rep. Camacho, Carter, Clifford, DeGraff, Duran, English, Espinoza, Ferre, Representative Ferre is excused. Flannel, Froelich, Garcia, Representative Garcia, excused. Garcia Sander, Gilchrist, Rep. Gilchrist is excused. Goldstein, Gonzalez, Hamrick, Hartsook, Jackson, Johnson, Joseph, Kelty, Leader, Lindsay, Luck, Lukens, Rep. Mabry is excused. Marshall, Martinez, Morrow, McCormick, Wynn, Pascal, Phillips, Richardson, Ricks. Representative Ricks is excused. Rutinel, Ryden, Sirota, Slaw, Smith, Soper, Stewart K, Stewart R, it's right there, Story, Representative Story is excused. Sukla, Taggart, Representative Taggart, Titone, Valdez A, Rep. Valdez is excused. Velasco, Weinberg,
Present.
Wilford, Winter, Woodrow, Woog, Zokai, Representative Zokai,
Excused.
and Madam Speaker.
Here. With 59 present, 6 excused, we do have a quorum. Representative Goldstein. Representative Goldstein.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I move the Journal of Wednesday, March 4th, 2026 be approved as corrected by the Chief Clerk.
Thank you, Representative Goldstein. I liked the hush. It was a gentle touch. Members, you have heard the motion that the journal be approved as corrected by the Chief Clerk. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Members, we are going to start with announcements and introductions before we move into thirds. All right. Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Today, the Colorado Emergency Managers Association, the FEMA in Colorado, is hosting their second annual Lobby Day. Our emergency managers across our counties and across the state are crucial anytime a disaster happens. We need coordination, we need communication. They help make sure all our first responders know where to go, what resources are available, and they help with the cleanup and the aftermath. Without them, we wouldn't be able to triage or support public safety and public health in our state. Can we please have the many emergency managers along the side please rise and recognize them?
Welcome to the Capitol.
And I would like to invite all of you to have conversations with them this evening, 5 o'clock to 6:30 at the Pub on Penn to discuss what's going on in our state for emergency management. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Johnson. Representative Gonzalez.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Speaker. Members, as we have discussions on health care and we face the long bill here in a few weeks, I just want to call to action to all of you to make sure we keep our community health centers in mind. Today we have some of community health centers in my district from Sunrise. So if you could please recognize the community health centers in my district who, like you guys who have them in your district, do so much for our community. I got some people from Sunrise today, so if my Sunrise people can please stand to be recognized.
Representative Hartsook.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Speaker. We got a few of the folks here. So today we've got the Colorado Chamber Alliance that is in visiting the Capitol. They have over 50 members. These are all the business communities throughout the state and the chambers. They're here to talk to various members about the business bills that are coming up and what they do in their communities. So where are they at in the gallery, or have they made it over here yet? I guess they're still meeting. Well, when you see them, well, stand up. Welcome them. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rep. Representative Woodrow.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, quick announcement. Finance Committee will be meeting upon adjournment, 10 minutes upon adjournment. How many? 10 minutes upon adjournment.
10 minutes, 10 minutes.
In room 112 to hear Senate Bill 009, House Bill 1200, and House Bill 1057. See you there, 10 minutes upon adjournment in 112. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative McCormick.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I know I owe $1. I'm going to give Agriculture, Water, and Natural Resources Committee 15 minutes upon adjournment. That's 15 minutes to room 107, and we will be hearing two sunset bills, 1197 and 1213.
Thank you. Representative Gilchrist.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Tomorrow is Zoo Day, everyone. Yay! Every day is Zoo Day. So tomorrow is Denver Zoo Day, which is in my district. For those of you who don't know and new here, there'll be tons of animals in the Capitol. I think I have to escort a hawk into the chamber. So please participate. They'll be here in the morning from 8 to 9. Go hang with the animals, and yay, Denver Zoo.
Thank you. Representative Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have two announcements. I signed up for neither one of them, so I guess I owe you $2. Yesterday, I was supposed to announce, but I was out of the chamber, that this week is Consumer Protection Week. and that the governor has declared this week Consumer Protection Week. The Department of Regulatory Agencies is our consumer protection department here. They do great work protecting consumers in the insurance space, in the banking space, and others. So just wanted to acknowledge that. Tomorrow at 8:30 in the morning in the Old State Library, the Appropriations Committee will be meeting. We will hear 4 bills, the following bills in this order: 1009, 1008, 1069, and 1088. And I hope to see you there.
Thank you, Representative. A new strategy, signing up a day in advance. I appreciate your thoughtfulness. Representative Stewart R.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Good morning, members. Today, members of the Colorado Association of Medical Equipment Services is here in the Capitol. They're an organization made up both of small and large medical equipment companies, including things like oxygen delivery, medical supplies, orthotics, wheelchairs, hospital beds, rehab equipment, and many other specialty medical items. These providers care for some of the most vulnerable people in our district, and their services keep people at home and allow them to stay in their communities out of institutions. They're following many issues at the Capitol this year, but this year, Medicaid reimbursement cuts and making sure they can still provide access to quality care for their patients, even in the face of lower provider rates, are at the top of their list. Please join me in welcoming them to the Capitol, and I hope you get the opportunity to learn more about the amazing work they do across our state. And there they are.
Representative Froelich.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Please welcome the League of Women Voters who are here with us today.
Hello, welcome. Representative Lukens.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The House Education Committee will be meeting in room 107 at 1:30. We will hear House Bill 1191 and Senate Bill 34.
Thank you. Representative Velasco.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. The Energy and Environment Committee will be meeting after the upon adjournment committees, and we'll be hearing House Bill 1278, House Bill 1124, and House Bill 1208.
Thank you very much. Representative Carter.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. State, Civic, Military, and Veteran Affairs will be meeting 15 minutes upon adjournment. We will be having statutory revisions palooza, which will include HB 26-1217, HB 26-1219, HB 26-1295, HB 26-1218, HB 26-1294, HB 26-1293, HB 26-1215, HB 26-1216, HB 26-1220, and HB 26-1296. Please join me in statutory revision palooza.
I love a Lollapalooza. That's a good one. Members, Representative Garcia will replace Representative Mabry on House Business Affairs and Labor for today only. Members, that concludes announcements and introductions. Please take your seats. We are about to proceed to thirds. Members, please take your seats. One last announcement. Oh, we'll do that in a minute. Madam Majority Leader. Oh, sorry. Third readings. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title of House Bill 1026.
House Bill 1026 by Representatives Marshall and Hamrick, also Senator Kolker, concerning an expansion of plan options for the Public Employees Retirement Association.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move House Bill 1026 on third reading and final passage.
Members, the motion before us is the adoption of House Bill 1026 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Weinberg, how do you vote?
No, ma'am.
Representative Weinberg votes no. Representative Wilford is, Representative Zokai and Wilford. That is a $1 fine. Please close the machine. With 49 aye, 13 no, and 3 excused, House Bill 1026 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title to House Bill 1002.
House Bill 1002 by Representatives Brown and Gilchrist, also Senators Ball and Pelton B, concerning measures to increase patient access to behavioral health providers and in connection therewith, efforts to enhance provider participation in healthcare provider networks and reimbursement of pre-licensed providers who provide mental health services under the supervision of a licensed provider and decreasing the clinical hours required to become a licensed clinical social worker.
Madam Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move House Bill 1002 on third reading and final passage.
The motion before us is the adoption of House Bill 1002 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Weinberg, how do you vote?
No, ma'am.
Representative Weinberg votes no. Please close the machine. With 51 aye, 13 no, and 1 excused, House Bill 1002 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title to House Bill 1205.
House Bill 1205 by Representatives Velasco and Morrow, also Senators Cutter and Baisley, concerning changes to state law to reflect the federal expansion of Good Neighbor Authority agreements.
Madam Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move House Bill 1205 on third reading and final passage.
The motion before us is the adoption of House Bill 1205 on third reading, final passage. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Weinberg, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Weinberg votes yes. Representatives DeGraff and Luck. Please close the machine. With 63 aye, 1 no, and 1 excused, House Bill 1205 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title to House Bill 1145.
House Bill 1145 by Representatives Velasco and Phillips, also Senator Cutter, concerning water quality in mobile home parks.
Madam Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move House Bill 1145 on third reading and final passage.
The motion before us is the adoption of House Bill 1145 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Weinberg, how do you vote?
No, ma'am.
Representative Weinberg votes no. Please close the machine. With 42 aye, 22 no, and 1 excused, House Bill 1145 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title to House Bill 1007.
House Bill 1007 by Representatives Smith and Stewart R., also Senator Kipp, concerning measures to improve a customer's ability to use distributed energy resources.
Madam Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move House Bill 1007 on third reading and final passage.
The motion before us is the adoption of House Bill 1007 on third reading, final passage. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Weinberg, how do you vote?
No, ma'am.
Representative Weinberg votes no. Please close the machine. With 48 aye, 16 no, and 1 excused, House Bill 1007 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title to House Bill 1127.
House Bill 1127 by Representatives Rutenell and Joseph, also Senator Roberts, concerning a report after motor vehicle crashes resulting in death.
Madam Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move House Bill 1127 on third reading and final passage.
The motion before us is the adoption of House Bill 1127 on third reading, final passage. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Weinberg, how do you vote?
No, ma'am.
Representative Weinberg votes no. Ryden and Velasco. Please close the machine. With 42 aye, 22 no, and 1 excused, House Bill 1127 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title to House Bill 1277.
House Bill 1277 by Representatives Bradfield and Leader, also Senator Doherty, concerning the continuation of the Kidney Disease Prevention and Education Task Force and in connection therewith, implementing the recommendation of the Department of Regulatory Agencies and the Department's 2025 Sunset Report to sunset the task force.
Madam Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move House Bill 1277 on third reading and final passage.
The motion before us is the adoption of House Bill 1277 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Weinberg, how do you vote?
Yes.
Yes.
Representative Weinberg and family vote yes. Please close the machine. With 64 ayes, 0 no, and 1 excused, House Bill 1277 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Members, Representatives Brown, Sirota, and Taggart are excused at such time as necessary for the Joint Budget Committee meeting today. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move the following bills be made special orders on March 5th, 2026 at 9:38 a.m. House Bill 1081, House Bill 1228, House Bill 1120, and House Bill 1084.
Seeing no objection, the bills listed by the Majority Leader will be made special orders today, March 5th at 9:38 a.m. Representative Woodrow. Members, you have heard the motion. Seeing no objection, Representative Woodrow will take the chair.
The committee will come to order. With your unanimous consent, the bills will be read by title unless there is a request for reading a bill at length. Committee reports are printed and in your bill folders. Floor amendments will be shown on the screen on iLegislate and in today's folder on your box account. Bills will be laid over upon motion of the majority leader, and the court rule is relaxed. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title of House Bill 26-1081.
House Bill 1081 by Representatives Camacho and Duran, also Senator Roberts, concerning measures to optimize Colorado's electric transmission system.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1081 and the Energy and Environment Committee report.
To the committee report.
In committee, we ran amendments to bring Excel and Black Hills to a good spot, and I asked for a yes vote.
Representative DeGraff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate the work on the sponsors on this. To the committee report, I'd like to move, or I do move, L007 to House Bill 1081 and ask that it be displayed.
Please just give us a moment to display the amendment. Representative DeGraff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and appreciate the sponsors' willingness to work on this and ensure that nothing in this subsection of this section precludes the evaluation of other technologies or devices that enhance the reliability, resilience, or protection of electric transmission system, including by improving the stability of existing transmission infrastructure. And this is very important. We'll be discussing this on my bill today. And one of the options that comes up is a neutral ground blocker. And a neutral ground blocker is a relatively inexpensive way to recover about 2% of our state's power that's produced every year that is lost currently to geomagnetically induced currents. And then it also provides hardening for our grid itself. So this was just something that I wanted to make sure that the bill in improving the efficiency of the transmission, that it was not excluded. So I think it's a friendly amendment. I think it works well with the sponsors, the bill and the bill's intent, and I ask for an aye vote.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to my colleague. And members, I ask for a yes vote on this amendment.
Any further discussion on L007? Seeing none, members, the question before us is the adoption of L007. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. L007 passes. Any further discussion on the committee report? Representative Camacho. Seeing no further discussion on the committee report, members, the question before us is the adoption of the committee report as amended. All in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee report as amended is passed.
Yes.
To the bill, Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For many Colorado families, electricity bills are now true kitchen table issues. When rates go up, it's not abstract. It affects groceries, childcare, and household budgets. This bill is about speed to power and saving money. Advanced transmission technologies, including grid-enhancing technologies like dynamic lane ratings and advanced conductors, can be deployed and existing transmission lines can be deployed quickly and at a fraction of the cost of building entirely new infrastructure. In many cases, they can significantly increase the amount of electricity those lines can carry without putting up new towers or going through years of permitting. That means we can reduce congestion on the grid, move low-cost energy to where it's needed faster, and help prevent outages during extreme weather. These technologies can also help reduce wildfire risk by improving system visibility and performance. Right now, these solutions are often overlooked in transmission planning. This bill changes that. It ensures utilities fully evaluate these tools and consider financing strategies that lower costs, including working with the Colorado Electric Transmission Authority to make projects more affordable. This is not a mandate to build something new. It's a mandate to think smarter first, to use practical, proven tools before we ask ratepayers to foot the bill for larger, more expensive projects. And I respectfully ask for a yes vote today. Thank you.
Representative Camacho.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's an honor to serve with you.
It is an honor to serve with you.
Colleagues, every day, every single day, millions of Coloradans rely on the electric grid to power their homes, their businesses, their vehicles, and their lives. But right now, our grid is under growing strain. Demand is rising, families are feeling the pressure of higher electricity bills, and utilities are grappling with the wildfire risk and extreme weather events that threaten reliability. At the same time, Colorado is producing record amounts of clean energy. The challenge is not only whether we can generate power, it's whether we can deliver it efficiently and affordably to people who need it. House Bill 1081 is about getting full value from the infrastructure we already have instead of defaulting to building new transmission lines that can take a decade or more to permit and construct. This bill requires utilities to seriously evaluate advanced transmission technologies, tools that can increase the capacity, resilience, and performance of existing lines. Under this bill, utilities must examine the technologies in their 10-year transmission plan, analyze where they are cost-effective, and justify when they are not used. We also strengthen coordination through the Colorado Electric Transmission Authority, require annual reporting to the legislature so we can maintain oversight and transparency. This legislation ensures that before we ask ratepayers to fund costly new infrastructure, we've examined every practical, cost-effective option available. It's about reliability, accountability, and affordability in making sure Colorado families get the most value from every grid investment. We respectfully ask for your support.
Any further discussion? Representative Camacho.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And in our effort to continue stakeholding this bill, we are offering Amendment L004.
Please move the amendment.
Sorry, I move Amendment L004.
Just give us a second to display it. The amendment is displayed. Members, this is a multi-page amendment. It was received on March 4th at 10:57 a.m. We are right at 24 hours. Representative Camacho.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Amendment L004 is offered in stakeholding with our labor partners, our public utilities, and our commission in DORA. This amendment makes targeted technical changes that will further support the implementation and the impact of this bill. It clarifies that advanced transmission projects resulting from this bill comply with existing labor law under Senate Bill 23292 if they meet the definition of qualifying energy sector public work project. Expands the definition of grid-enhancing energy storage projects to allow additional innovative technologies to be considered by utilities and the PUC, and it future-proofs the performance thresholds for advanced conductors by allowing the Public Utilities Commission to refine the standard as technology evolves and transmission system needs change. And we respectfully ask for a yes vote.
Members, is there any further discussion on L004? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of L004. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. L004 is passed. Back to the bill. Representative DeGraff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move L006 to House Bill 1081 and ask that it be properly, improperly, or however Vanessa wants to do it, displayed.
Let's do it upside down this time.
Yeah.
The amendment's been properly displayed. Representative DeGraff, tell us about L006.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So on L006, what it just says is nothing in subsection 6D of this section requires a utility to deploy an advanced transmission technology. It authorizes the commission to mandate a specific vendor, device, or software, and then requires the cost recovery from taxpayer for an advanced transmission technology unless the commission finds, based on competitive procurement or comparable process, that the advanced transmission technology proposal will reduce the total transmission-related costs over the life of the asset. So this is just putting some market efficiencies in there. There's a lot of things that we do that we say that they're going to save a lot of money. This would be an example like a high-efficiency appliance. A high-efficiency appliance, a lot of times you'll pay a premium price at the cost of reduced redundancy and a lower factor of safety in order to minimize weight. And what you end up with is a piece of junk after 2 years. So you're trying to save energy, and you might save energy in the use, but ultimately you're going to spend more money and more energy in the actual manufacture and then in the replacement. So this is just putting some market pressures on that and making sure that we do these proposals over the life of the asset. One of the things that I'm concerned about as we get into this electricity push for infrastructure,
Committee, if we could quiet down just a little bit, that'd be excellent. Thank you so much. Representative DeGraff.
one of the big problems that the concerns that I have in this push for infrastructure is the way the way some of these things are handled, because what the investors we have an investor-focused utility, and what ultimately happens is they are incentivized just for the sake of more infrastructure. And when they're incentivized for the sake, if they're purely incentivized for an infrastructure, then we have a perverse incentive for more infrastructure. For example, the PUC, with the 4 appointees by our governor, authorizes the investors of Xcel to make 10% on the investment. Now, if anybody's tracking their investments, they know 10% is a pretty high risk yield right now. So they're getting a high risk yield on the investment for a zero risk investment itself, right? So you get a high risk return on a zero risk investment. And that's all determined by the PUC. And then the PUC also gives the perverse incentive of more infrastructure. And so you have this focus on the investor focused utilities, and that I think is not necessarily a good thing for Colorado. So we need, and it's definitely not a good thing for ratepayers. So we need to base this, and a lot of this is based on having a dispersed system, because now we have in order for these investors to promote their ESG goals and full electrification, they're actually pushing and they're actually forcing our infrastructure out into the hinterlands of Colorado. And that requires even more infrastructure to be dragged into the state. So we're talking about thousands or millions of acres of solar panels to be connected by thousands and thousands of miles of lines of grid, and all of it increases the profitability. So if you think this is about green, the only thing green about green energy is the dollars involved. And then this is something that the PUC rubber stamps, and again, the four appointees with no utility expertise, all appointed by Jared Polis. Or actually, one was appointed by an appointee of Jared Polis, who he brought from California, I'm sorry. And of course, I know everybody's waiting for the analogy, because so much of this is to address your carbon footprint, which is 1/2 of one drop in 6 of these rooms. So, and if you wanted to look at the overall what you're actually accomplishing when you say we have to do something, even if you did 100% of the wildly overestimated 100% of the 33 degrees Celsius, which is considered to be the greenhouse gas effect over Colorado's 0.1 billion tons of carbon dioxide produced every year, over 3,300 billion tons. The reason that we're doing all these investments, the reasons that we're enduring the public safety power shutdowns is for 0.001 degrees Celsius. and which is a temperature temperature change that you experience in approximately 3.6 seconds of every day. So if you actually go, it's probably about a third of a second every day at max. So again, we need to have some market forces in this, not just the PUC driving up the investment rates for BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. What we need to do is we need to focus on the customers. We need to focus on the rate payers, not be focused on the investors.
Any further discussion on L006? Representative Camacho.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We respectfully ask for a no vote.
Any further discussion on the amendment? Representative Slaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And to the sponsors who are distracting me right now, but that's okay. So I like this amendment. This helps me get closer to a yes. I'm still not there on this because I am not a climate alarmist, and I don't know that these are that it's necessary. What I do like is that what this does is it says nothing requires, nothing mandates, and nothing requires. And those are some of the concerns that I had. Is I did not want anybody to be required or mandated to do things that were going to cost additional money, and that potentially trickle down to ratepayers. Thank you.
Representative Camacho.
Making sure no one else is well. We respectfully ask for a no vote.
Any further discussion on L006? Seeing none, members, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment L006. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. L006 is lost. Back to the bill. Any further discussion? Seeing none, members, the question before us is the passage of 1081 as amended. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. 1081 is passed. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title of House Bill 1228.
House Bill 1228 by Representatives Stewart R. and Frey, also Senator Danielson, concerning measures to increase access to licensure as a marriage and family therapist.
Representative Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1228.
To the committee of the whole.
Representative Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are delighted that this bill passed unanimously out of committee. Simply put, this bill creates an additional pathway to licensure and allows prospective marriage and family therapists to do education and clinical training in a variety of different orders. It does not change the requirements. It just allows flexibility in when, in what order things happen to make sure that we are creating accessibility, pathways to licensure, and workforce development in our mental health pipeline, and I would ask for an aye vote.
Representative Ferre.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I said in committee, I believe that most of us need marriage and therapy counseling, so especially in this Capitol, so I would appreciate a yes vote.
Any further discussion on House Bill 1228? Seeing none, members, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1228. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ayes have it. 1228 is passed. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title of House Bill 1120.
House Bill 1120 by Representatives Martinez and Velasco, also Senators Simpson and Kipp, concerning the implementation of the recommendations of the Mobile Home Taxation Task Force and in connection therewith, increasing the value threshold for the mobile home property tax exemption, modifying the process for the collection of delinquent property taxes to align with real property tax lien sale and public auction procedures, extending the redemption period for mobile homeowners and clarifying that a mobile homeowner under legal disability is entitled to an extended redemption period of up to 9 years.
Well done, Mr. Schiebel. Representative Martinez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1120 in the Finance Committee report.
To the Finance report. Representative Velasco.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair.
Representative Martinez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in Finance, we made a couple of amendments in there. One came from the treasurers. requested them to have some cleanup language in the process portion of this. And then the second amendment was to strike our section 1 of the bill in order to reduce our fiscal note, to make sure we're being fiscally conscious in this tight budget year. And so we request an aye vote.
Any further discussion on the Finance Committee report? Seeing none, members, the question before us is the adoption of the Finance Committee report. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Finance Committee report is passed. To the bill, Representative Velasco.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. And this bill was really just to make sure that property owners are able to get the surplus or home equity when it comes to their mobile home. And this comes from a Supreme Court case, and we needed to align with the Constitution. So we want to make sure that people are getting their equity, and the ruling determined that counties were keeping these dollars that were just compensation and a violation of the Fifth Amendment. And currently in Colorado, through the tax lien process, if you're delinquent on your property taxes, those tax liens may be sold to private investors. And this case suggested that our state may be run afoul of the takings clause of the Fifth Amendment because we do not have a mechanism for property owners to receive the surplus of their property above the tax debts. These recommendations came from a task force. So we are just implementing this task force and have been working on this issue for almost 3 years. So we urge a yes vote.
Representative Martinez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks to my amazing co-prime from the Western Slope. And, really at the crux of this bill is that what we found out through this process, and again, a 2-year endeavor into really diving into this, is that if there were any property sales, that the mobile home owners were not held equitable with their counterparts, and it was not fair. And it obviously took a Supreme Court decision to decide that this was not fair and equitable to those that own mobile home parks. And this makes sure that it's equitable for them, that they receive the equity in their home, that they put money, time, investment into, and making sure that if there is a lien, that they are still able to keep that equity, just the same as someone with a stick-built house or any other property. And again, this is in line with the Supreme Court of the United States as well as the Constitution of the United States. So we think this is a good bill. This has been, again, a 2-year endeavor to making sure that we got this correct, making sure there are other, like the treasurers, the counties weren't negatively impacted by this, but really this is going to be a big impact for the state of Colorado, and making sure that we're doing what's right and just and should have been done 30 years ago. So we urge an aye vote.
Representative DeGraff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I mean, I really do hate this position to be in, but I really do support this bill. I don't know why it took the Supreme Court to rule on this. It's really surprising to me. So I was really surprised, and I thought it was great that the sponsors brought this forward, and really also surprised that it took like multiple years to get us to this point. The idea that a municipality would sell a property, any property, and then that somehow something in the law, because it wasn't real property, wasn't attached to the actual ground, made it so that if they had a $20,000 in equity and it had to be sold for $10,000 worth of back taxes, that they didn't get the $10,000 back. And so very shocked to hear that, and very glad to see that the sponsors not only proposed this and brought this, but then stuck to it for the couple of years. But there is one thing that I'd like to amend in it, and that is I move L008 to House Bill 1120 and ask that it be properly displayed.
Representative DeGraff, tell us about L008.
Thank you. And what this does is the county commissioners were all including El Paso, very in support of this bill overall. There might be some other amendments, I guess, some tweaking, but this was the big one. But overall, the county commissioners, or the treasurers, I'm sorry, were in favor of this bill. But they did say that there was a certain part that was kind of a no-go for them, because they were very pleased to have this mechanism back in place where they would be able, not only would be able to, but would have to return any excess equity beyond what was taken in seizure, and that is the language requirement. And so they said that was just very difficult. And when so the intent is great, but ultimately what we have to do is the requirement to have all of these things posted in 5 different languages goes beyond the good intentions, because if the municipality translates these into 5 different languages, then they are also responsible for how those 5 different languages are perceived, how they're read, to make sure that translation is not only, accurate, directly accurate, but probably there's the contextual, the cultural accuracies and all that. So, and then a typical commissioner is not going to be able to, or treasurer is not going to be able to ascertain this, especially when we get into 5 different languages, the top 5 different languages of any municipality. So what this does, and if the treasurer has actual knowledge that the mobile home owner speaks a particular language other than English, the treasurer may provide written notice written in English and that other language. So if they know that the individual speaks another language, what this does, the notice must include a statement explaining how and where the mobile home owner may obtain language translation services. So this, I think, fulfills the intent of the bill. It fulfills the intent of the bill by making sure that those language, and we're already paying for these language services. And so this takes the treasurer out. The treasurer just has to say, preferably in that language, and that's a pretty easy thing to say, is to say, everybody can take your Google Translate out of your pocket right now, and you can translate just about anything into any phrase that you want. And then the accuracy does not have to be there for the cultural, for any of the nuance. All that they would do is have to say in that language, which you can now do with any mobile device, I think, is, except the flip phone I wish I had sometimes, but to direct them to where they can actually get these language services to make sure that they can understand the ramifications of this. So I think this does that. So the mobile home owner may obtain, where the mobile home owner may obtain language translation or interpretation assistance as determined by the treasurer based on the needs and the resources of the county. So this is just fulfilling the intent of the bill to make sure that people are not left out in translation, fulfills the intent of that bill, and also utilizes the resources that the state is already paying for and not duplicating all those resources across all of our counties. So I think then the individuals are better represented in the because to secure these rights. The purpose of government is to help these owners secure the rights and to keep their property from being lost, especially due to some administrative oversight. So for that reason, I ask for an aye vote on this amendment.
What? Representative Brooks.
Chair, thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
I had a Snickers bar. In case anybody was wondering. Feel refreshed. No more Betty White. I am happy to speak to the amendment. These services, and look, I understand that, no. I understand that at one point, some of the translation services were really bad. I've used them myself before and found them to be horribly inefficient. However, we've come a long way in a very short period of time, and these translation services are much more efficient than they have ever been. There are going to be different versions. I believe the bill sponsors even know there are going to be different versions of this. One might call it, I don't know, different dialects. It's all in the same language, but there are different flavors and dialects and explanations of this amendment. This is one where it really does help the counties with being able to reduce the mandate. I have to tell you that sitting in committee, I was a little confused as to why I'm hearing from the counties that they're saying, well, no, this is great, and we support the bill, but gosh, we really hate the fact that we're being forced to translate into all these languages, and that provides a very expensive and cumbersome mandate on us. But yet they still were saying, no, overall, so my point is that I think the bill has some good intention behind it that the counties can get behind and that they can actually support. However, every single county that I heard from in committee spoke very clearly that they did not like the fact that they had to run all these different translations. It's hard for them. It's expensive. They don't have the staff for this. But thanks to some amazing technological advancements in AI, ChatGPT, maybe AI a bad word around here these days? I'm not sure. But we have the ability to be able to translate, or at least allow the counties to be able to use services that translate. And I know that you're not going to get every single punctuation and little nuance correct, but you're going to get the basic gist of it and be able to save counties an extraordinary amount of time and effort and expense when it comes to doing what they need to do. So why would we work against the counties that want to support this bill? So I would ask for a yes vote on this amendment because it is threading that needle of county support, but being able to ensure that they're able to take something that was very, very concerning to them out of the bill. This amendment addresses that. Again, I ask for an aye vote.
Representative Hartsook.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the sponsors. So we had a very robust debate on this legislation in the Finance Committee, and I was appreciative that they brought the amendment that struck the 1.1 million fiscal note. But there is still a requirement that is going down to the local government. And what this amendment is saying is instead of just lumping it onto the local governments and saying you got to do it in 5 languages, or, I mean, at what point do we say 2 languages, 5 languages, 15 languages? When is it enough? And when does this body stop passing things down to the local government as an unfunded mandate and saying you have to do this, and then say, oh, it's a zero fiscal note, therefore there's no cost? That is inaccurate. There's a cost. We're just not footing it at the state. We're passing it down to the local government. That is neither right, fair, nor just. What is very interesting is the strike-through amendment that brought it down from 1.1 million to 0, but didn't address any of the other issues. This is one of the amendments that we're trying to address for the local governments to say, no, you're not going to have to incur this cost. I would urge an aye vote on this amendment. Thank you.
Minority Leader Caldwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, I was sitting in committee, not on the committee, but I was listening in, and so my treasurer from El Paso County actually suggested this amendment for the very same reasons that my colleagues had laid out. That there is a cost on our local government. This is not a messaging amendment. This is a sincere concern by our local elected officials, specifically the treasurer of El Paso County, along with other treasurers. This is an unfunded mandate just because there's a zero fiscal note. This has a cost, and this is just something simple that will kind of alleviate that cost on them. And it's good governance, and we seriously urge you to vote aye on this amendment.
Representative Barron.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I come up here in support of this amendment as well for the reason that this is going to alleviate some of the costs to the local counties, but at the same time, I want to be able to speak what this amendment actually, how it's going to help. When we're running legislation here, and yes, we do say, oh, well, my bill has zero fiscal note. Great, it has a zero fiscal note. But the opposite side of that coin is that, where is that it's obvious that this legislation is going to cost money. Where is the money coming from? This is coming from local governments. It's an unfunded mandate to local governments. So one way or another, whether the money's coming directly from the state or from local governments, it's coming from the taxpayers. So just because we have a zero fiscal note on a bill doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't cost anything. The money's just not coming from the state itself. It's coming from somewhere, but it's coming from the taxpayers. So I urge an aye vote on this amendment.
AML Winter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also rise in support of this amendment. We constantly talk about unfunded mandates, especially for rural and frontier counties. They have a hard enough time to keep up as it is. I think my colleague from Douglas County made a good point about with the technology that we have nowadays, exactly how people could empower themselves to be able to get a document translated if need be. But they are correct. It does not drive a fiscal note here in this building, but it does put more weight on small, rural, and frontier counties that already are dealing with the massive amount of unfunded mandates that come out of this building. Almost every commissioner I speak to talks about how they're having to dip into their reserves based on the unfunded mandates out of this building, and this is just one more straw on the camel's back, unfortunately. So please vote yes on this amendment, and please vote yes for the counties of rural Colorado who are trying to deal with some of the stuff that comes out of this building.
Representative Marshall.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I saw this, and it reminded me of a issue we took care of earlier. And this is a serious issue our colleagues across the aisle are bringing. But I don't think this amendment is something that can be acceptable because of the may. It allows people to just get out of the requirement to let people know on the foreclosure. I would strongly suggest that the minority party maybe get with our sponsors and work out an amendment where it requires notice in English and the second most spoken language in the county, and then 4 or 5 other languages where they just put in a sentence or two of where they can find language translation services for the foreclosure notice, rather than having to print the entire foreclosure in 6 different languages, because that does sound very excessive and confusing to everyone who may get a notice in 6 languages. So again, this amendment seems to fail because it says may, which will allow every county to just ignore it. But it does seem excessive, and I do think there's a compromise that could be worked out. Thanks.
Representative Bottoms.
Thank you, Chair. I don't disagree with Representative from Douglas County on this, but if you look at the amendment, the last part of the amendment says, as the needs for that county. This already gives, this already does exactly what the representative just came up and said. And so, sounds to me like he was in favor of this. So we are providing for that in this amendment. It can be done according to the needs of the county. And by the way, you can do almost all of this on chat or Grok or any of these. And so it's not going to cost any extra money. It doesn't demand any other people or resources. It just demands a computer that they're already sitting behind. And so this enables the people in those counties to be representative, to be acknowledged, to be seen, to be given that space, and it costs nothing, absolutely nothing in the process. So I believe strongly this amendment works.
Any further discussion on L008? Representative Martinez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll start at the very beginning with the bill. So I actually agreed 90% with my colleague from El Paso County on why the bill took so long, really what took a Supreme Court decision to make this happen, and that we really shouldn't need a bill to be able to bring this forward, to bring equity and justice for those that own mobile homes. However, we are here and this is what we're doing. How that relates into this amendment. It's taken so long in to get this process completed and to be making sure that we are doing right and just by our citizens, our population. And so where we're coming from on this is that because this has been such a long outstanding issue, because we're having to go back through and making sure that people are getting the equity that they put into their houses, we want to make sure that we are communicating that as best as we can to, from the counties to those individual citizens, so that that way they understand and know what money they're entitled to, what equity that they have that they're entitled to. And so we need to be able to cast the net as wide as possible to making sure that we are ensuring that those that are have put in that money are getting that compensation that they put in, because that's their money. Now, how this looks, we are open to discussing how this looks in reducing the cost on the counties. We understand that. However, we want to make sure that we, again, are communicating this information in as many languages as possible, to making sure that those, it doesn't matter what language that is your native language, but that we are communicating with you and that you understand and know where this is. So we are open to discussing how to reduce said cost. But again, our intent on this is to making sure that we're communicating in as many languages as possible, and that way if you are entitled to equity, you do receive that equity. So we request a no vote on this amendment.
Representative Hartsook.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you again to the sponsors. I don't know that anybody is disputing that we want to make sure that people understand what they're entitled to, and that's a great issue that we should be doing up here. My argument is that when we did the strike below to eliminate the 1.1 million fiscal note, we're now saying there's no cost, but we were just acknowledged by the sponsors that there is a cost. The bottom line is there's a cost to local government, and we're not accounting for it in the fiscal note. We're not accounting for it in the legislation. But we in this body are telling local government, suck it up and pay the cost. We get it. We need to make sure that the consumers get what is due to them. But we have to allocate the money to the local governments to do it. It is wrong to cost shift from the state down to the local government and say, you figure it out. That's wrong. We should not be doing that. I urge a aye vote. Thank you.
Representative DeGraff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And that was one of the reasons for bringing this forward, is because what we're trying to do is we're trying to stop these unfunded mandates on the counties. And when we send these, this body, we have these pink sheets, right? To the people in the gallery, to the people who are here for oversight, to make sure that we are doing the best that we can to secure your rights, because the only people that have rights in this state are the citizens, are the individuals. And we down here are supposed to support those rights, and down below, far, far, far below this room, is the office of the executive. But when this room starts to get into the mindset of His Excellency and starts imposing costs on the municipalities of Colorado to the people in the gallery, those costs are conveyed to you. So when the state says it's spending money and giving you money, usually filtered and bypassed and skimmed through nonprofit organizations, non-governmental organizations, non-audited government organizations, but those are costs that go to you. So when the government says it's giving you money, it's just giving you part of your money back. And in this case here, the fiscal note is saying that, hey, there's a zero cost. But that's not true, because the cost in this case of language translation services, which are immense, those are passed to the municipalities. And while it sounds like a great idea, and it has really, really good intentions to make sure that all of the residents in this state because the role of this body is to secure the rights of those individuals, life, liberty, and property. And this bill is helping ensure that their property is secured. But they can't make sure that the property is secured for these residents by taking the property of other citizens of Colorado to say that, well, we're going to take your property to make sure that we secure these residents' property. So we ultimately have to make sure that this is done in the most efficient way possible. And I think this is the most efficient way possible, because even to translate documents into 2 languages, well, one, it only serves part of the population, and it leaves another part out. And it also, when you keep everything going in multiple languages, what you're doing is you're increasing the balkanization of the nation. And you're keeping people from fully participating by learning the language. I know learning the language is tough. My boys are both bilingual. They went to a German school. They became fluent in a couple of years. It takes time, it takes effort. But we can't keep spending the citizens' money, no matter what the avenue is, on these unfunded mandates, because the state has blown through its $4 billion surplus. The state has blown through another $4 billion worth certificates of participation. And it's these little things that add up to it, and they just create this idea that we can just keep adding to the cost. As long as it doesn't cost the state directly, then it's somehow not a cost to the state. And the citizens of Colorado do not care. It does not matter to them whether the cost to them is borne out at the state level or at the municipal level. It is still a cost to them. It is still a tax to them. This translation service in the bill as it is a tax. No matter how you shape it, no matter how you form it, it is a tax. So we need to stop with the unfunded mandates. I get it. It's a very good intention. I don't doubt that on the sponsors at all, because and we really need this bill to get through, but we really can't support it when we're on the backside creating not only a tax on the citizens of Colorado indirectly through an unfunded mandate, but we're also creating more precedent for unfunded mandates in the relation of these language services. Because if this bill gets a language service, then all other bills are going to end up having language services, and then we're going to be more billions of dollars in debt. We need to stop digging the hole. We need to start exercising fiscal responsibility. Otherwise, I think this is a really strong bill for the citizens of Colorado to make sure that they keep their equity in the property that I don't really care how they got that equity. If that's their equity, it's their equity, and the state has no right to it. But we can't, we just need to polish off this part of the bill. This is an easy way to do it. This would eliminate the fiscal note that's attached to this. Well, even if there's no fiscal note attached to it, it's disingenuous to say that there's no cost, because it's a cost on the municipalities and it's a cost on the citizens of Colorado.
Any further discussion on L008? Seeing none, members, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment L008. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. No. The noes have it. L008 is lost. Back to the bill. Representative Zokai.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It is an honor to serve with you.
It is an honor to serve with you.
And I just wanted to take a minute and come down here and express my support for this bill and thank the sponsors for all the work that they have done to support our mobile home residents. I also wanted to note a portion of this bill that unfortunately is not before us today that was an initial part of this bill, which was increasing the property tax exemption for our mobile home residents. And that exemption is currently at $28,000. That does not go as far as it used to, and we were discussing increasing that exemption threshold to $52,000. Unfortunately, that piece of the bill is not before us today, as we were concerned about school funding impacts that it may have. I did want to put on the record that we discussed this in committee, and what we heard from our county partners is that it actually costs them more to collect on this amount than they are bringing in, and that workload was not reflected in our fiscal note. And so I do think there is a path forward to increase this exemption threshold. And for many of our mobile home owners who were exempt and are now taxable, this makes all the world of difference when they are trying to balance their budget each month. And so I do think this is an issue that we need to further explore. I think that $52,000 maybe is not the right mark. We can find something in between 28 and 52. And I think we need to work with our counties to truly understand the cost cost of collection and what the true impact would be on our schools. Because that has become a complicated issue that I think takes a little more time, is something that the sponsors have committed to me that we will continue working on. I hope that that bill is before all of you next year to vote on. For now, I urge an aye vote on this bill, but did want to put on the record that this is a piece that deserves our attention. Thank you.
Representative Brooks.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to say something very similar to one other kind of rare occurrence that I had earlier this session, which I thought was worth noting out is an opportunity to be able to agree with somebody with whom I don't always agree, almost all the way. My colleague from Larimer County brought up some good points there that I believe are very fair. We sat in the committee together. The conversations that she's recollecting are conversations that I was part of, and I thought that those were good conversations around this bill and how to be able to make it better, particularly for the counties. The amount of collection was not as much of a concern for me, but I do think that that's a very good point that's worthy of further exploration. And then also, I was getting the same feedback that my colleague from Larimer was receiving, and said it's going to cost more to collect this than what it's actually worth. So it's again, it isn't a criticism, but oftentimes we have an idea that is brought forward that makes it to this point in the process that isn't perhaps as elegant as it could be, and I believe in this case isn't as elegant as really it needs to be in order to properly address the issues. I will say that I am a little disappointed in some of the support positions that this received in committee, while at the same time they're saying, oh boy, this part kills us, but we're still in support. I would ask for more of a collective kind of effort to make sure that we're communicating very clearly at the outset that there are concerns of a critical nature that we need to be able to address before we get to the point where we're saying, yeah, we actually support this, especially if there's something in the bill that they clearly do not support. I'm speaking about the counties and the cost that it takes to collect, and not only collect, but then also the cost that is in part of this whole process because of the translation piece. Therefore, I move 009 to House Bill 1120 and ask that it be properly displayed.
L009 has been moved and properly displayed. Representative Brooks.
Chair, thank you. Very similar, different dialect, if you will, of a previous amendment which sought, as this does, to help the counties out with that burden of the translation. First of all, we're at a point to where these translation services are much more reliable. We don't necessarily need to have somebody, a person, a process, an expense that is doing that work. I have a colleague from Douglas County that came up afterwards and recognized the legitimacy of the amendment that had been brought previously, but made a comment that he thought, wouldn't it be a better amendment if it just simply talked about English and Spanish? Guess what? That's what this amendment does, right? So it releases the need, and it's not, if you want to look at the bill itself, it strikes the section of at least 5 additional languages and just simply substitutes that for Spanish. So there's still a requirement to translate it into the 2 most commonly used languages, English and Spanish, so we're not trying to get around that piece of it, but we are trying to relieve a burden for the counties on that expense that comes with that exercise. So I would ask for an aye vote on this, and I'm going to present just a little bit of a different argument to this, aside from just the counties, that I hope you find both interesting and engaging, that if they're saying that if it's known that the mobile home user is known to speak this language, then that language, it must be translated into that language, okay? Here's the problem, is that we're in this kind of space right now to where we can say something you know, I could say perhaps that my native language is Greenlandic. Why Greenlandic? It's because I did a little warfare here search. This is what I searched, exactly what I searched. What is a little known language that I can say I natively speak that would be difficult for an official agency to translate, right? So it could be weaponized. This could be weaponized. If you're interested, I know you are, Greenlandic is a highly complex polysynthetic language which roughly only 57,000 people speak. Often considered very difficult for non-natives to master, its structure, which combines many morphemes into long, simple words, creates significant translation challenges, making it a strong candidate. I love technology. In the same way that technology can very easily translate for me to my native language, it can also very easily tell me how I can make some warfare out of this situation because it is a strong candidate for an unfamiliar, difficult to translate language. There are other examples here too. I won't go through all of them. There is one that caught my attention, Swardspeak. It's a language used in the Philippines, which is an amalgamation of Japanese, Spanish, and English. It's often used as a hidden or slang language. I've always heard it referred to as pidgin. But again, it allows for an opportunity to perhaps create some confusion, which at the end of the day, our counties are going to have to figure out. I understand that there is some work that has been suggested, but because of the timing from, you know, the cadence from committee to now hasn't necessarily allowed for those in-depth discussions to be able to get to the point to where we're actually having those meaningful discussions. I do trust that they will happen. However, I believe this is a very elegant solution to a problem that our counties have stated, and I ask for an aye vote.
Representative Sukla.
He made Soper sound better. Thank you, Mr. Chair. This amendment está bien. Está bien. So I've been watching the debate here going back and forth. We've got a really good amendment. We've got a really good bill. We've got a really good amendment. And if you was in the Elks Club playing bingo, this is where you would yell bingo. Yes on the amendment.
Representative Soper.
Merci, Mr. Chair. Members, I rise in support of this amendment. This is a very good amendment. What I will say is, what I do find troubling about, with at least 6 languages, is not all words mean the same. And not even translators will agree. As many of you know, my wife, her first language is Mandarin Chinese. She also speaks Taiwanese, which is her native tongue. Taiwanese is an unwritten language. So certainly if you demanded to have notice in an unwritten language, it would have to come in the form of some sort of audio notice. Likewise, Mandarin Chinese is also very hard to translate. To a Taiwanese person, they use traditional characters. To someone who's from China, they use simplified characters. A Taiwanese person can read simplified characters, but a Chinese individual who knows simplified cannot read traditional characters. So in that particular case, do you go ahead and put both traditional Mandarin and simplified Mandarin, not knowing exactly who the individual is going to be? But then what about Cantonese? So if the person came from Hong Kong, would you go ahead and include that? Not to mention the European languages that we have and those from the Middle East. We also have some of our Native American and indigenous languages as well. And some of those are also unwritten languages. So you go down a very slippery slope by including 6 languages. What we've heard recently is that about 20% of Colorado speaks Spanish. We also know that there are a number of immigrants that speak different languages within our state. The obligation that we want to put on our local governments is, yeah, absolutely. Notice in terms of, the dominant language, which is English, second dominant, which is Spanish. And if you have a reason to know of what the person speaks, that language as well. But it's hard to go down the path and say we're going to just have 6 languages listed out. Those can be incredibly difficult. I know in my hometown of Delta, we have a large Kern population. They were refugees. We have several hundred of them. Well, for our particular area, that would be a language that you would want to include. There are difficulties also with translation, in that what you could get from an AI model like Microsoft Translate or Google Translate may not be a straightforward translation. And this being a legal document, you're going to want to have a certified translator with each of the 6 languages. And by the time you've actually found a person who does that, I mean, now you're talking hundreds of dollars per hour for each translator to do this. That's an unreasonable cost to bear, and also one that defies the practical side of what we're dealing with. We want to have adequate notice, and we want to make sure that individuals understand what's there. But there is a practical side, which is if you're living in a nation in which the dominant language, the official language, is English, and the second most spoken language is Spanish, you could reasonably expect to see things in both languages. Occasionally, some other dominant languages. But 6 languages is pretty outrageous. And I would ask for a yes vote on the amendment.
Representative DeGraff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, one of the sponsors gave me some context on this, and I thought it would be important to go to it, and that it was constitutional, because we were talking about the constitutionality of, at one point, Colorado was a 3-language state. And so I wanted to look at it. The exact text of the provision as adopted in 1876, which we know from being the 150th year of Colorado. Until the year 1900, they, the General Assembly, shall cause to be published in Spanish and German a sufficient numbers of copies of said laws to supply that portion of the inhabitants of the state who speak those languages, and who may be able to read and understand, who may be unable to read and understand the English language. So again, until the year 1900, the General Assembly shall cause to be published in Spanish and German a sufficient number of copies of said laws to supply that portion of the inhabitants of the state who speak those languages and who may be unable to read and understand the English language. So that was in 1876, and they gave a 24-year run-up to say, hey, at some point we need to, we need to make sure that we are e pluribus unum, that we are one nation, that we are all moving in the same direction. There's nothing superior in the sense of one language over another, just that it is common. So this required the General Assembly to publish all acts and practice in extending to the Constitution itself and amendments in English plus Spanish and German additions to accommodate non-English speaking residents, primarily Hispanic and German immigrant populations. This was driven by Delegate Casimiro Barela from Southern Colorado, probably Pueblo, and others during the 1875 to 1876 convention to ensure accessibility. So it sounds like it was a really great idea. It was a really great idea for the Casimiro Barela, and I'm saying that definitely wrong because I can't do that with my R's, but that they would ensure that the citizens of Colorado were incorporated, but again, that we are moving in the direction of e pluribus unum. And if last time I checked the calendar, 1900 was about 126 years ago. And that's when the multilingual publication was no longer constitutionally mandated. So if we're going to go to any sort of constitutional semblance, and that one, it's pre-1900, and it was very specifically 1900, and then we'd also have to go to German. which I don't, and the reason is, now we're starting to get into this mission creep where we start to have to translate all of Colorado documents into, and it's not just a simple translation. You have to translate it culturally, contextually. It is a very difficult and expensive process. And so if we go down this road, because again, there's no constitutional basis for requiring it in Spanish any more than there's a constitutional basis for requiring it in German. So the original amendment is more constitutional, and it's protective of the rights and the monetary standing, protecting the property of the citizens of Colorado. The requiring of 5 languages, and those 5 languages are going to be different for every municipality in Colorado, is a very, very, very expensive mandate. I remember when I was flying in Canada, they talked about having the F-18 documents, having all of the F-18 documents having to be translated into French. Nobody read them, but they spent millions and millions and millions of dollars on making sure that they had a dusty French edition sitting up on a shelf someplace that they could point to and say that that the documents were bilingual. The intention is there, but this is the current language as it is a serious, expensive, unfunded mandate, and which is unfortunate because the driver of the bill itself is such a good idea.
Representative Bottoms.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not trying to get up here and just throw another wrench in here, but this is actually something that I'm very passionate about. My church has multiple language services, and we have Russian, Spanish. One of those languages that we provide in our church is sign language. Sign language always gets left to the side, always gets pushed to the side. The 5 additional languages doesn't specifically say spoken languages, but nobody ever includes sign language in this. And believe it or not, so you've got, somebody said 20%, I think representative from El Paso said 20% of our state is Spanish speaking. I think it's actually 24% of our state is Spanish speaking. The next language group, the next largest language group after that is sign language, and it's 13% of our state is deaf or hard of hearing, and they need sign language, and this always gets left out. They are definitely a preclude. They're a demographic that gets pushed off to the side and ignored most of the time. So I'm just throwing that in here just to make people think about it, that the deaf community is, when we're talking languages, they're very rarely included in the conversation, but they are the second highest language group in the state of Colorado.
Representative Borron.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also support this amendment. Now I'm going to tell you why. Spanish is the second most predominant language in this state. Growing up, from the age that I can remember, maybe 5, 6 years old, I was my parents' translator for documents that came through the mail. That when we went to the doctor, we went to the store, I was a translator. I learned English watching Cartoon Network, watching cartoons, and going to school. Being in school with a bunch of other kids taught me the English language. We didn't have the English as ESL classes back then. I went to elementary school in Kit Carson, Colorado. We lived there for 3 years while my dad was working in oil and gas. He had a good opportunity in oil and gas over there before he started his business. So we lived over there. So over there, I was probably one of 3 Hispanic families in Kit Carson, Colorado, and everybody else were English-speaking kids. So that's how I learned English. Now, this amendment, what it does is it gives that option for the second most predominant language to be able to understand their issues, but also it encourages these people like myself and my parents. After a while, I wasn't their translator anymore because they wanted to learn the English language. They were encouraged to do so because it was in their best interest to do so. So what I'm trying to say here is we should be encouraging people that speak or understand the English language to want to understand and speak the English language. This is just one step, and I believe it really does. By adding just the Spanish language to this list, it will encourage them to want to understand the English language better and wanting to speak the English language better. So I support this amendment, and I don't know about how my colleagues on the other side of the aisle feel about it. I don't know, maybe a nice little division might work here, but I encourage an aye vote on this.
Any further discussion on L009? Representative Velasco.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. We urge a no vote. Thank you.
Any further discussion on L009? Division has been called. The House will stand in a brief recess. The committee will come back to order. Members, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment L009 to House Bill 1120. A division has been requested. All those in the chamber not entitled to vote, please sit and remain seated. All those in favor of Amendment L009, please stand and remain standing in one place or raise your hand and keep it raised until the count is taken. In one place. You may be seated. All those opposed, please stand and remain standing in one place, or raise your hand and keep it raised until the count is taken. You may be seated. Amendment L009 is lost. Back to the bill. Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1120? Seeing none, members, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1120. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. No. The ayes have it. 1120 is passed. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title to House Bill 1084.
House Bill 1084 by Representatives Espinoza and Camacho, also Senators Weissman and Lindstedt, concerning voter transparency requirements to expand information about the funding of initiated statewide ballot measures and in connection therewith, requiring the ballot title and abstract of the fiscal impact statement for certain initiated statewide ballot measures to identify the main areas of state expenditure that would be affected by the measure.
Representative Espinoza, flying solo.
And after division, I don't know where he could be. Anyway, thank you, Mr. Chair. I move HB 1084.
To the bill.
Thank
Representative
you.
Espinoza.
Mr. Chair, I would like to move L001 to the bill and ask that it be properly displayed.
Could you just say I move L?
Yeah, I move L001 and ask that it be properly displayed.
Thank you. Please give us a moment to display the amendment. If you could hand the amendment packet to the desk, that'd be great. L001 has been displayed. Representative Espinoza.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. L001 is a result of our committee discussion, which was robust and very exciting in committee. The only change that was recommended by the committee, well, there was one change which will be coming up. The only change that was recommended by the committee that was substantial to the bill and we felt was critical to the inclusion is to add one simple word to the bill in two different places to keep them in conformance, and that is to add the word likely in the provision, and that's what this bill does. The first section just is larger in language because we're conforming it to the actual change that we're making in the original bill that we proposed. But by adding the word likely, we are ensuring that we are protecting the rights of the legislature to make different areas of expenditure if that is necessary, but we're providing information to the public that the likely areas of impact would also be put into the ballot. So we added the word likely, and we'd ask for a favorable vote on the amendment.
Any further discussion on L001? Seeing none, members, the question before us is the adoption of L001. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. L001 is passed. To the bill, Representative Camacho.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, we are running House Bill 261084 for the sake of transparency and fairness in elections. As a state that frequently pushes decisions that affect our budget to the voters, we have a duty to ensure that they receive all the relevant information they need to make an informed decision on ballot measures. Given our unique fiscal structure under Tabor and ongoing budget challenges, this is especially important for measures that would increase state expenditures and do not mention revenue sources or specific program reductions. Just this past election cycle, we saw ballot measures that would propose significant new state obligations without clearly identifying how those obligations would be funded or which programs might be affected. For example, in 2024, voters approved Prop 130, which required the state to provide $350 million in funding for local law enforcement, recruitment, training, and support, but that did not identify a dedicated funding source or specify that what trade-offs would be required. After the election, the legislature had to determine how to pay for it. Ultimately, the state funded Prop 130 primarily by drawing roughly $500 million from the general fund's reserves, our emergency savings, and using those funds to generate investment returns that would support the required spending over time, along with additional direct transfers from the general fund. That approach avoided a tax increase, but it reduced the state's budget flexibility and required the use of resources that might otherwise have supported priorities like education, healthcare, or higher education. Voters in my district and across the state carefully studied the proposal and made a thoughtful decision, as they always do. And we trust Colorado voters. They consistently weigh the merits of ballot measures and take their responsibilities seriously. But without clear information about where the money would ultimately come from, voters cannot fully evaluate the real fiscal trade-offs involved. It is incumbent upon us to provide voters with as much information as possible so they can make a fully disclosed decision. House Bill 261084 helps ensure that they have the information they need before casting their vote. House Bill 261084 works to increase the information voters receive by requiring measures that lack fiscal specificity or increase state expenditures to include in the ballot title the three largest areas of state program expenditures that would likely be reduced if passed, and the estimated dollar reduction to those programs in the first fiscal year. This bill is intended to improve transparency. On a personal note, I know many voters in my district take their obligations incredibly seriously. I've heard countless stories of voters in House District 6 that host Blue Book parties, where they order pizza, invite their neighbors over, and debate bills. That is what democracy looks like, and that's what we want. But we also want, when you're having that interaction with your neighbors or your friends or your family, to know what you are debating and what the actual trade-offs are. Because making a decision in the blind without this information isn't fair. It's not transparent, and we can do better. That's why we're bringing this bill, and I urge your support.
Representative Espinoza.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In addition, I just wanted to indicate that what we are not doing is imposing on the initiative process. People who are bringing forward ballot measures have no obligation to specify where the funds would come from or to designate any budget cuts. However, what is critical is that the voters have the information of the impact of something that increases a state expenditure, because we as a legislature must then figure out where those dollars will come from. What we know is the three largest budget areas in the state are likely going to be impacted by any major measure expenditure that doesn't have a source of funding. We often come up with ways, quote unquote, around Tabor. I think a measure that provides much more transparency to the voters so they know that we are not undermining the existing system and their desire to participate in the process is a really good one. So this bill balances those interests, allowing the ballot initiative process and measure process for our citizen initiative ballot measures to move forward, but only adds the additional requirement of notice. And if they don't provide the notice or choice themselves, what will happen is that we give them the information from the state. The three largest areas of expenditure in the state are K through 12 education. We know now Medicaid, because it is fastly eclipsing our budget, and higher education. If we put education together as one bucket, it might, the next one is Department of Corrections. So with those expenditures, what we really want to do is ensure that the public understands. If you're asking us to spend more money, the likelihood is that some of those other big buckets are going to have to be cut, and we want you to make an informed decision. This is not to say that our citizens don't bring forward valid measures that we intend, we do every attempt to implement in this legislature, but at what cost and to what other programs? This is a piece that is valuable for the public to know before they make a vote on a ballot measure. So it also brings us in conformity with what we've done in the income tax area, where we also provide that information to the public. If there are increases in income tax by any measures that are brought forward, that now is expressly written out in the Blue Book. So what we are trying to do is align the processes for ballot measures and ballot initiatives, and we want to ensure that our voters are the most informed because we know that's what they want. They want to make the right choices. We want to help them. Please vote yes on this ballot, on this bill.
Representative Luck.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a couple of amendments that are as a result of conversation brought forth in committee on this bill. The first amendment I move, which is L002, and ask for it to be displayed.
All right, that is properly displayed. Continue to the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In committee, the question was raised as to whether or not a single subject issue would come up when an initiator came forward and identified buckets of money. And I think it's fair to say that that would not likely be the intention in my conversations with the bill sponsors. And so I put forth an amendment to just simply clarify under the language related to this bill and under a conforming section dealing with a related ballot and measure type, the statement that if buckets of money are found and identified by the ballot initiator, that the title board cannot then say this violates the single subject rule. It's just merely a clear up of any sort of gray area that might exist at law, and I ask for an aye vote.
Representative Camacho.
Colleagues, and I want to thank my good colleague from bringing this amendment. We do also share a goal in making this legislation better. However, we unfortunately simply have not had enough time to review this amendment and go to stakeholders and make sure we fully understand its full impact. So we have a commitment to making this rule better, or making this bill better, but for today we ask for a no vote on this amendment.
Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment L002 to the bill. For a vote. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. All right, the amendment fails. Back to the bill, Representative Luck.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I do appreciate the bill sponsor's commitment to hopefully working on that in the Senate. Thank you guys for the ongoing conversation. I move L003 and ask that it be displayed.
That is properly displayed to the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this amendment comes from conversation again in committee and then conversation that we hear in community related to the creation of ballot title language. Basically what this amendment does is say that in these instances where you have not only the substance of what the initiators are trying to do, but also the corresponding identification of pockets of money or programs that are going to be impacted, that the initiators have the ability to present draft language to the title board that is presumed sufficient unless it violates the other statutory and constitutional requirements, things like brevity and objectivity. We all know that those who frame the issue win the issue in most instances, and so it should be allowed by the initiator to frame the question on our ballot so as to put them in the best position to be successful. We give that authority to legislators when legislators put ballot language on or language on the ballot for things that we refer there. And so in the same way, we should provide that opportunity to our citizenry, especially when we're talking about questions, as was mentioned, the reallocation of money and from education and healthcare to to law enforcement, how you say that and the way you say that could be very easily persuasive in the outcome that you get. And so those people moving the initiative should fairly be able to submit that language so that they feel like they have a fair shot once November comes. I ask for an aye vote.
Representative Espinoza.
Thank you. We're asking for a no vote on this amendment. The LSC currently prepares 3 separate fiscal documents when we're going through the process of the ballot initiative. The concern with this proposed amendment is that would upset that existing process, and we would ask that this not be adopted at this time because I do not want to impose any additional structural change that has not been fully vetted by LSC. So I'd ask for a no vote. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, the question before us is adoption of Amendment L003 to the bill. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. No. The amendment fails. Back to the bill. Representative Bradley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We live in a state where we can have ballot initiatives brought forward by citizens. It's very hard. It is very arduous. But hopefully this November, we're going to see 3 really great citizen-driven initiatives be placed on the ballot. I heard a lot of testimony on this bill. A lot of people came forward, and they talked about the hypocrisy when we have bills that lead to ballot initiatives that we get to demand the title for versus citizen-led ballot initiatives that now have to go through the title board and jump through other hoops where they get to decide what the language is. And it's hypocritical. It's not a fair playing field. It's not a fair playing field for us as legislators to get to decide, and then citizen-led ballot initiatives be able to not be able to decide. Someone else gets to put the languaging in. Similar challenges have been made in other Colorado transparency laws. Opponents of ballot title disclosure requirement argued it compels political speech and adds irrelevant information that crowds out actual message content, violating the First Amendment. They told the Colorado Supreme Court the requirement burdens political expression with little real benefit to voters. Another common complaint, I know you guys have all gotten the calls. Help me with these ballot measures. They're confusing, they're too long, I don't understand it. I think this just adds another impact. We're talking about 3 different departments that we're gonna cut funding from. No, it's confusing to the voters. Some critics point to past ballot transparency laws where opponents argued that the required fiscal language didn't accurately reflect how programs would be funded or cut. In a lawsuit over ballot title requirements, critics even claimed that the government's mandated description could be false or misleading because it didn't necessarily match real outcomes. Opponents of this bill sometimes say that making ballot proposals more bureaucratic to qualify by requiring more detailed fiscal disclosures could raise barriers to citizen-led measures favoring well-funded special interests and professional campaigns over grassroots groups that may lack resources to produce detailed analysis, and that's what we're seeing. Citizen-led initiatives, they can't pay people to stand outside King Soopers and collect signatures. This is coming from the well-funded, on both sides of the aisle, the well-funded ballot initiatives. So creating a task for the citizens to jump through even more is not what we stand for in Colorado. We have these ballot-led initiatives for purpose, so that the citizens who are tired of the policies being made in this building can go out there and collect signatures and fight for their right against these policies being created. A lot of people see this as politically motivated, and a lot of people that came to testify see this as politically motivated. I'm not saying that that's what the bill sponsor's intent is, but that's what it looks like. And the representative from Penrose brought up a good point. If we put on the ballot measure, let's say, we're going to take $400 million from illegal immigrants' health care and fund law enforcement, I dare to say my colleagues to the left would be quite surprised and upset. Thank you.
Representative DeGraff.
Thank you, Chair. I think we need to, I do ultimately think that this creates more difficulty for the citizens of Colorado, who see the ballot initiative as the only true way at this point to get their voice actually heard. When we look at one of the things that I tell the citizens of Colorado, I think they should, when we're looking at accuracy and truth in labeling, when you look at the bills that are coming forward in Colorado, I think it's pretty accurate to say that generally what the bill says, what the title says, what it says it is, it ain't. And in nearly every case, what the title says versus what's actually in the bill, the citizens are always very surprised at what's in the bill compared to what's in the title when they actually go and read it. They'll be very supportive of the title, very not supportive of the contents. And so I think we ought to have, before we start restricting the citizens of Colorado and telling them what they may and may not say, I think we ought to have some of these rules that apply to us. We ought to have a little bit more accuracy in the titles. You know, my colleague brought up about I think a great one. I think it was SB, was it 25, 183 with the author, trying to entrench the de-peopling Colorado through the making it part of our Colorado Constitution for enshrining feticide into our Colorado Constitution. And what the bill title went through, it said, shall we make this a guaranteed right? And the citizens did say, and I don't think they really understood what that right means in terms of denying personhood to one group of persons means the state can actually deny personhood to all persons and doesn't recognize the concept of personhood in general, and that's a very slippery slope. But that initiative said that this would have no fiscal impact. And it was promoted, 183, I think it was 183, it was promoted on no fiscal impact. And that's how it was promoted. Everybody said, well, this is not going to have any fiscal impact on the state. But then they skipped down. They didn't read the full sentence, and that part was basically said there's going to be no fiscal impact unless there is. Absolute duplicity in that regard. And that came out of this body. So this body flat out lied to the citizens of Colorado because as soon as that ballot initiative passed, this body authorized one of the most massive unlimited expenditures. We don't even know how much this is going to cost. All to ensure that anybody from any location in the country or even the world, as far as I can tell, is going to be able to come to Colorado for any reason, at any time, by any method. Draw and quarter, suffocation, mutilation, chemical burning, for the only crime of being a preborn person. So this body does not hold itself, and none of those things came and said, hey, where are we going to get the funds for it? Because you know what this body does? It says, hey, if we don't have funds for whatever program we want, we'll just circumvent the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. We'll just ask for more fees. We'll just ask for more trans taxes and get those fees, those taxes that identify as not taxes, but really are taxes. Absolutely, this body has an opportunity to lead. Instead, it dictates. Leaders lead, dictators dictate, and that what comes out of this body is dictation, tyranny, not truthfulness. And then you say to the citizens of Colorado, it's like, hey, we can't balance our budget in this room, but you know what? You're going to have to go through the hoops of balancing the budget. You as Colorado citizens from whom these laws flow, from the just provisions, the just powers of government flow from the citizens.
Representative
We're
DeGraff.
going to require some from you what we don't require from ourselves. Ma'am, I am talking about this bill.
Please keep talking about the bill. That's the actual bill.
It is the bill. The actual bill is to require from the citizens of Colorado what is not required out of the General Assembly of Colorado. The General Assembly circumvents the citizens of Colorado, the will, the Constitution, the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, and then it tells the citizens of Colorado what it can and cannot say. It's going to say what the government of Colorado is going to say what the citizens can and cannot say, literally what they can, what they are able to say. This is a First Amendment violation. It's not an efficiency, it's a violation. Fiscally, constitutionally, what we should be making is the ballot process easier for the citizens of Colorado. If we've got 3 great ones coming up, because the citizens of Colorado know their rights have been usurped at every turn. And now now the citizens are actually going through the process of getting hundreds of thousands of signatures. And instead of listening to the citizens of Colorado and going, wow, we are actually so tone deaf that we don't understand what the citizens of Colorado actually want, what you're doing is doubling down and saying, sit down, shut up and color because we don't care what you think. That's what this bill says. So I'm all for efficiency. But we don't make the trains run on time until we secure the rights. These bills are about making sure the trains run on time. That's it. You can frame it however you want, but this is about saying what the citizens can say. It's about saying that the citizens have to jump through hoops that we do not. The citizens should have the opportunity to reach into the pockets of the legislature and say, you know what? This is a priority for the citizens of Colorado, and we want. And then you're going to have to figure out where to balance it. Those are based on your priorities. But this is what we want, and this is a system of self-governance, and that system of self-governance is governed by a system of selves, and that is the citizens of Colorado, and this usurps the very basis where the citizens have the right to protest, that they have the right to petition their government. The right to petition their government is not the right to dance and sing and jump through hoops to entertain the General Assembly. The right to petition is, we should be facilitating that. But we don't. Instead, we're saying what the citizens can and cannot say. We're saying that they have to come up with a balanced budget, which we cannot do. This body just reaches into the pockets of taxpayers over and over and over again. $4 billion over, $1 billion after that, $3.5 billion of trophies of participation. And you want to tell the citizens of Colorado that they need to be somehow fiscally responsible in their ballot initiatives.
Is there any further discussion on the bill? Seeing none.
I am discussing the bill. That's what the bill says. Are you now going to stop the citizens of Colorado from speaking on the ballot initiatives, and you're going to stop me from talking about the ballot initiatives? I'm just trying to make a point as to how bad this bill actually is. It is intended to undermine the ability for citizens to petition and redress their grievances. And I think the General Assembly ought to care about that because their purpose in being here is to secure those rights, and one of those rights is that. And this violates it. So I get it. The General Assembly does not care what the people of Colorado thinks. That has been made clear over and over and over. It does not care about their constitutional limits. That has been made clear over and over
Representative
and over.
DeGraff, you don't get to impugn motives. You know that.
Ma'am, I don't know why they don't care.
You
I'm
don't
not
get to
saying
do
why
that
they
either.
don't care. I'm just saying we have hundreds of citizens that come here to speak to the General Assembly and make their voice heard. And they're ignored. And I don't know why they're ignored. Because the power of the General Assembly flows through them unless it's unjust.
Come back to the bill, please, Representative DeGraff.
I'm talking about the bill. The bill is to usurp the First Amendment rights of the citizens of Colorado, which makes it unjust. I know that doesn't faze anybody. It should. It should faze the citizens of Colorado. but you should know what's going on. Focusing on the trains running on time has a historically bad precedent. Focusing on the rights of the citizens of Colorado is what made this country great. Suppressing the voice of the citizens of Colorado is the road to tyranny. This bill is the road to tyranny. It is, and I don't know why, I don't know what would motivate such a drive, but it is to squelch the speech of the citizens of Colorado. Again, it's telling them to sit down, shut up, and color. We're building our utopia, our totalitopia, and you will like it. Vote no on this bill.
Is there any further discussion on the bill? Seeing none, the question before us is passage of House Bill 1084. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. All right, the bill is adopted. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
Where's it? All right, I've heard the motion. The committee will rise and report.
The House will come back to order. Mr. Schiebel, please read the report of the Committee of the Whole.
Madam Speaker, your Committee of the Whole begs leave to report as under consideration the following attached bills being the second reading thereof and making the following recommendations thereon. House Bills 1081 as amended, 1084 as amended, 1120 as amended, and 1228 passed on second reading, ordered, engrossed, and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage.
Representative Riden. Members, you have heard the motion. There is an amendment at the desk. Mr. Schiebel, please read the Soper amendment to the Committee of the Whole report, House Bill 1130.
Representative Soper moved to amend the part of the Committee of the Whole to reverse the action taken by the committee in not adopting the following Brooks Amendment L9 to House Bill 1120 to show that said amendment passed, that House Bill 1120 is amended passed.
I misspoke. 1120. Representative Soper.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move the Soper amendment to the Committee of the Whole report and ask that it be properly displayed.
Thank you. It is properly displayed. Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So, members, we talked about this during the debate of striking the at least 5 additional language and replacing that with Spanish. Spanish is Colorado's second most spoken language. It's definitely incredibly reasonable that that is published here. Having English plus 5 additional languages, so 6 languages in total, is very unreasonable. And during the debate, we talked about, would you put traditional Mandarin? Would you put simplified Mandarin? Would you put, for example, Taiwanese, which is a spoken language, so maybe there has to be a QR code to where it's audio. We have some of our Native American languages here in Colorado that are also unwritten. They may have a phonetic spelling, but what phonetic spelling do you go with? The fact that we have many languages that gets caught up in a very legal, sticky situation because these are legal documents. And in order to be such, you want the translation to be clear. Because if someone is going with like a Microsoft Translate or a Google Translate, that doesn't cut it. Plus, are you going to get the characters right? And which characters do you use? Which languages are used? The fact that this definitely opens up the floodgates to lots of potential liability of someone saying, well, the notice was in my language, but it didn't translate correctly. It was something that I couldn't understand. So in many ways, how the bill is written actually imposes more of a burden, not just on our local governments, but even with the individual questioning whether the translation is even correct. So what looks like a benefit to the individual, in fact, is one that they have to question. Because they've come to our great country, if we're providing a benefit of having numerous languages that are being written out as far as a notice, all of a sudden, we're saying that they can trust that. And we would want them to trust that. But the cost of being able to do that is incredibly hard. Think about all the languages that exist around this globe and how many have different spellings, different translations, different interpretations. And it can be very difficult when you're talking about words of legal significance. If we limit this to English and Spanish, which are Colorado's 2 predominant languages, that's clear and straightforward. We can help those individuals that may have additional languages as well, but let's limit it to what's the predominant languages for the printed notice. And I'd ask for a yes vote.
Representative Velasco.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker, and we urge a no vote.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion before us is the adoption of the Soper Amendment to the Committee of the Whole report. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Weinberg, how do you vote?
Yes, ma'am.
Representative Weinberg votes yes. Representative Stewart, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Stewart votes no. AML Bacon is excused. Please close the machine. With 22 aye, 37 no, and 6 excused, the amendment is lost. The motion before us is the adoption of the Committee of the Whole report. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine, and members proceed to vote. Representative Weinberg, how do you vote?
No, ma'am.
Representative Weinberg votes no. Representative Stewart, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Stewart votes yes. Representative Brooks. Please close the machine. With 38 aye, 21 no, and 6 excused, the report of the Committee of the Whole is adopted. Any additional announcements or introductions? Seeing none, Madam Majority. Oh, Representative Ricks.
Members, Business Affairs and Labor will meet at 1:30 today in room 112. We'll be hearing 3 bills in committee. We'll be hearing 3 bills into committee: HB 1258, HB 1207, and HB 1117. See you there.
Thank you, Representative. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, do I have your attention? Last time I made this announcement, I didn't. Tomorrow is Relaxed Dress Day.
Wow. Isn't it still early in session for Relaxed Dress Day, Madam Majority Leader? We're past day 50, says our chief clerk. Okay. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We're just starting a new tradition. I move to lay over the balance of the calendar till Friday, March 6, 2026.
Seeing no objection, we will lay over the balance of the calendar until tomorrow, March 6th. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move the House stand in recess until later today.
The House will stand in recess until later today.